We're going to go into a little more detail about what SCORE is and does in a few minutes, but Rod, why don't you?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Rod Clark. I am a SCORE mentor. Len and I are in different chapters. He's out on Western Mass. I'm in the South Shore area. My background is in sales and marketing, and I have a lot of fun talking about creating value, creating branding, talking about pricing, how you can get customers and all that good stuff. So I think between the two of us, we should be able to cover a lot of ground today.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and get started, and see if we can get this thing to kick off. There we are. Good. Okay. A few housekeeping notes. Everybody is muted. We've got, you can focus your questions into the Q&A feature. We can also, in fact, that's probably a little easier for Teresa to manage the questions. You can also put questions into the chat, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. Everybody is going to get an email with the links to the recording of today's webinar. And one of the objectives today is to get you to become a client. So if you want a mentor, if you want a free SCORE mentor, please put your name and your zip code into the chat function so that we can follow up with the right chapter. We have a number of chapters in Massachusetts to help you.
Hey, Len, your camera turned off for some reason.
Can you see the video? No? Can you see
yeah, it just has the little, the little stick figure there. There you go. You're back on.
Okay. Okay. Did you see the previous slide?
Yeah. The slides are good.
Okay. All right. Okay. So again, use the Q&A. You can see the arrow at the bottom that points to the Q&A to ask a question. And Teresa's going to pass them on to us, and use chat for comments. We'd love to have your comments, reactions to whatever we talk about. And then, as we said, you'll get the recordings in a few days. And there'll be a poll. I think there's 4 questions in the poll towards the end of the webinar. We welcome your feedback. A brief introduction. Oh, Rod, why don't you take this one?
Absolutely. So we are the nation's largest business mentor organization. There's about 12,000 of us running around. We have 6 chapters here in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. About each of us, Len, I think, have about 50 per chapter. And we exist through a collaborative agreement with the SBA. And we're open for business. We're meeting clients via Zoom and over the phone. And our sessions are about 1 hour in length, and we have appropriate assignments in between sessions. They're usually between 2 and 3 weeks between each session. And the beauty is it's no cost to you. Your tax dollars at going to work here. So that's the other beauty is that we've got the experience. Each of the chapters have tremendous amount of multiple years of experience in running a business in corporate America, finance, social media, operations, accounting, all kinds of things that we can bring to the table. And if we can't find it, we can find it nationally. So we can get on the horn with SCORE mentors across the country and find exactly what it is we need. And how to get a mentor. If you have a mentor, certainly, continue to work with them. I think some of you may have a SCORE mentor on this webinar. But if you don't have one, here is and once again, you'll get the recording that has these website designations here, but these are the 6 chapters that are here in the Northeast region. And so those will be ways that you can find us. So Len, I think it's back to you.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about the realities of entrepreneurship. Those of you who haven't started a business yet, this is something you need to really be aware of. What's it take to become an entrepreneur or a successful entrepreneur? What are the critical success factors? We were chatting a little bit earlier. What does it take to make your business successful? Know your options. What kind of different ways can you get into your business? And the components of business ownership. What are your responsibilities as you open your business? We want to make sure that it's legal. So we want to make sure that all your registrations and so forth are up to par. And then, of course, there is the question of how do I fund this thing? How do I make the capital investments, and where does the cash come from? And once I've got the cash, how do I take care of it? And finally, we're going to cover some business plan basics that that everybody needs to look at. There's some realities of becoming an entrepreneur. The first nasty reality is that after 2 years, 20% of all businesses will fail statistically. And then after 3 years, 33% of all businesses. So if we've got 30 people on this call, 10 of you will have failed after 3 years. And after 5 years, half of you on here will have failed statistically. Okay. We know some other things about business failures. The SBA tells us that 80% of all businesses that fail do not have a business plan. So they basically failed to plan. But what are the characteristics that the 4 main reasons why small businesses fail? The first is lack of planning. This is you didn't figure out how you're going to be a success in the first place. So you're sort of stumbling around trying to make your business work. The second is insufficient capitalization at your startup. You estimated that you were going to need $100,000 to cover all that new equipment and investment in new employees and all of that sort of thing, but you guessed wrong. So you really needed $120,000. If you financed your business on the get-go, you went to a bank and borrowed some money, and you go back to them 2 months later and say, oh, oops, I guessed wrong. I need another $20,000. The lender is going to look at you and say, you didn't do very well on your estimate before. Why should I believe that your new estimate is any better? So your ability to recapitalize is going to be jeopardized. It's better to overestimate at the beginning than to find yourself without enough capital to keep going. And the third reason is mismanagement of your cash flow. People get the cash and they go out and they buy a new car, a new truck, new equipment, whatever, when maybe they should try leasing, that sort of thing. Or maybe you didn't keep track of your cash flow and you spent the money too soon. So next week you can't make your payroll. So managing your cash, anticipating when you have to bring it in and what you have to spend is a really important part, and it's a big reason for failure. And finally, improper pricing. You priced a lot of mistakes that come from new businesses is to try to break into the market by underpricing, cutting the price to the customer so you beat the competition. The problem is that when you cut the price, you cut your margin and your profit, and you can't stand that for very long. So proper pricing, and there's a whole science around pricing. We have workshops on pricing, but you need to have a good price that gives you a good profit, and it's a price that works in the marketplace. So those are the 4 reasons that businesses fail: lack of planning, insufficient capital at the beginning, mismanagement of your cash flow, and improper pricing. Okay, do you have what it takes? The critical success factors: a good choice of time and location. In our conversations at the beginning, which some of you may have missed, we talked about COVID is a horrible time, but is it a good time to start a business? Why would you want to start a business in the middle of a pandemic? Well, businesses, let's look at Zoom, for example. Zoom was started before COVID, and as soon as people couldn't go to work and they had to get in touch with other people, Zoom's subscribers jumped like 300 times what they had before the COVID hit. It was a great time to be in that business. And the location, in this case, virtual, was a perfect place to be. Does your product, is this a good time for your product? And do you have the right location, either in terms of the city or the town or the platform on the virtual platforms or whatever? Do you have enough money to make it work? We in the process of business planning, you're going to figure out what your startup costs are. We're going to look at your day-to-day costs. We're going to look at your payroll costs. When we look at that, do you have enough money to get started with this? And then what is your ability to manage and multitask? It would be really nice if you're running a business, if people would line up with their questions and come in one at a time so you could deal with them individually. However, that's not the way business works. You've got a telephone call, you've got people standing in front of you, you've got an email that just came in. You have to be able to decide how to handle each of those tasks. And if you've got people or processes, you need to be able to organize and manage those processes. Do you have those skills? Do you have education or experience in the field? I have a client that came into me and said, I want to start a restaurant. I asked him, what's your experience? He said, I eat at a restaurant every single day. I know exactly how it works. Well, that's not sufficient. Do you have the education and real experience in the field to be successful in your chosen field? You have a strong work ethic. That's very important, that you are focused on making your business work, on serving your clients and making them happy. Effective time management. Have you gotten the skills that help you organize what time? For instance, I have friends who open their emails between 8 and 9, and that's what they reserve the 8 and 9 time slot for. Other businesses will have a team meeting at 8 a.m. and then they'll structure their day going forward to manage the things that are important and delegate the things that that they can either put off till tomorrow or give somebody else to do. And then the willingness to ask for input from others. That's a critical factor. Just by the fact that you're here in this workshop today, you're demonstrating your willingness to accept new ideas and get suggestions from others. That's an important part of starting your business. And then as an individual, you're a self-starter, you have your own ideas and you set your own priorities. You're resourceful. You find new and different ways of doing things. I talked a little in the beginning conversations about a farmer who had a new farm stand, and because of the COVID, he went online. He wanted to keep his business going, and he wanted to do it in an environment which was not encouraging people to meet. So he was resourceful and found a way to get around it. You need to do the same thing with your business. You're responsible. If you promise a customer that you're going to deliver your product or service on Tuesday, they're going to expect it on Tuesday, and they're going to expect that it's a good product, that it's going to work and do what you said. So you're responsible in terms of your attitude about making things work, and you're going to take responsibility for that. You're organized. Something needs to get done. You know what resources you need to pull together, and you can make it happen. You're a hard worker. You're the boss. Nobody's standing behind you, pushing you. This is your energy, your excitement, your passion, and persistent. Somebody tells you no, you go out and look for another way to get it done. You keep going at it. Somebody says, wait till Tuesday. You call them on Monday. That kind of thing. You're just constantly pushing and persistent to make sure that your goals and objectives are achieved. You're decisive. You can make a decision. I've worked for a number of bosses. I brought them a problem and they say, well, let me sleep on that. I'll get back to you tomorrow. That doesn't work in today's business world. You need to be able to decide issues based on information and urgency. And then healthy. Health is one thing that a lot of new business owners or entrepreneurs tend to forget. It's really personal. It's kind of internal, but it can be disastrous to your business. Um, I was working in China and had to give up my career because I ended up with kidney failure. But that's something that would surprise me. If I had been doing physicals year after year, it would have come up way before it got that serious. You need to make sure that you don't get hit with something that's sleeping inside of your health profile. Uh, so make sure that you're keeping track of your health as well as the other business things that are going on. And finally, a supportive family. When you come home and after a hard day at work, uh, there are people there to say, good job, how was your day today? That kind of thing. You got a problem and somebody stands back and says, I know you're gonna solve this problem. You've got a supportive, encouraging family, whatever your different definition of family is. It could be the blood relatives that live in your house or the extended family. It could be the work group. It could be a social group. But whatever your definition of family is, make sure you surround yourself with a supportive family. And then the big question, I'm going to run this business, right? It's just me. Well, me has a lot of responsibilities in the entrepreneur area. Uh, if I was in a larger corporation, I'd be the CEO of this company and I'd have an administrative assistant. And this assistant would make all my appointments and figure out who and where I should be meeting. In an entrepreneurial situation, this is you. It's either you or you're going to go hire somebody to do that. You're also responsible for the accounting in your company. You're going to have to prepare tax reports. You're going to have to pay bills. You're going to have to make all the quarterly payments that need to get done. You're going to have to figure out how to hire people. Where do I find the people, the recruits to come into the business? What about the interview process? What about the employee handbook? What about problem employees? How do I deal with that? That's you. This is you these days because it's your business. And then marketing. We've got marketing, we've got sales, okay? Marketing is getting people to understand who you are and creating a desire for them to buy your product. And sales is actually where you shake their hands and give them the sales pitch and collect the money, okay? So, but you're responsible for both of those. This is your social media program. This is that spot on TV or your place on Mass Live, whatever. You're telling people about your business and creating that demand for your product. That's your responsibility. And then in the sales area, this is where you're going to follow up on those leads and meet with the customers, make that final sales pitch, and collect the cash. But of course, there's also the customer service. These guys have created, these actions have created sales. The customer expects you to deliver. So that means that if they said Tuesday, you're going to make sure that the customer gets their product on Tuesday. And then you're going to follow up with that. A lot of businesses these days will send a follow-up email. Saw you were in yesterday, you bought that product. How's it working out? If you have any problems, be sure you get back to me. So customer service is very important to keep that connection for that repeat customer. And then I got the sales. I promised the customer I'd deliver in 2 days. Now we've got to make sure we've got it, either by building it or by getting it from somebody else, from a supplier. You need to be sure that you have it available. And then finally fulfilling it, putting it in the box or handing it over to the counter, making sure that the product actually gets delivered. So all of these things are your responsibility. In addition, what technology are you going to use? In a service industry where people make appointments, maybe you're going to try to figure out, instead of taking phone calls to do this, I'm going to do this online and use an app like Calendly so people can self-schedule appointments with me. You have to decide which way you're going to do that, what technology you're going to use. If you have technicians out in the field installing your air conditioning unit, Maybe you want them to have an iPad so that you can send orders to them so they don't have to come back to the shop to get the order form so they can go out to the customer. Or what other technology are you going to use to connect with either your employees or your customers or whatever. And then the facilities. You're responsible for deciding where we're going to be. Are we going to be in my home office? Are we going to be in that brick and mortar store downtown? What facilities are we going to use? Do I need a garage for the truck? Do I need a warehouse for the materials? What facilities? So as an entrepreneur, this is you. This is what you need to do. In some cases, it'll be more complicated in one area or another, but ultimately the responsibility for getting this stuff done is you. Now you can hire people to do all of this, all of these different work classifications of work. You can also hire other companies to do your accounting, for example, or your human resources, or even your marketing. You can hire other companies. How are you going to do this? The real key is that you need to understand that these are your responsibilities. These are the things that you need to get done. Whether you do them, you hire somebody, or you hire a company to get them done. It ain't simple. It isn't just opening the door and making it happen. You got a lot of stuff to worry about. And then we've got some options. 3 ways to start a business. I can start the business from scratch. I can buy a business that's already going, or I can license a business and take out a franchise. So starting from scratch, we have some advantages. Okay, I got total control. How it looks, where it is, all of those things, those are under my control. I can make all those decisions. And I get to keep all the profits, and it has the biggest opportunity, the biggest upside, if you will. More profit, more control. The disadvantages is that you don't have anything existing right now. You have to create all of your systems, whether it's how you collect cash or how you communicate with the customers, what message you need to send, what guarantees or whatever you're going to produce for your products. Those are all not there right now. You have to create them from scratch. Startup businesses have the highest failure rate. As we looked at in the charts before, in the first year, almost a quarter of you would not be successful in your business. According to lenders, you've got the highest risk factor. And then it could be years before you actually make money. And there'll be limited financing options. Lenders do not like to lend to new businesses. You have to have a really solid business plan. They have to be able to trust your business plan. You need to have some skin in the game. You got to make some of that investment yourself. You got to be, there's all kinds of variables that a financing company is going to be looking at. And new businesses are not on the good side of that risk factor. Buying an existing business, that one has some advantages. You have a cash flow that's coming in. It's already established. People are already visiting, and people have hopefully a good feeling about your company. And then there are actual historical results. This is great. I can look at this and say, what did the business do last year? And I could maybe anticipate that that's what it's going to do this year. So with the historical results and an ongoing cash flow, you're more attractive to lenders. People look at that and say, well, it did this last year. The likelihood of it continuing, since it's using the same form and format that we used last year, the likelihood that you're going to make money again this year is pretty good. So lenders look at that and they can say, that's not a lot of risk. If they can do what they did last year, this is a good business. And then it has an established location and customer base. People know where to find you, whether we're talking about an online business, a home-based business, or a brick and mortar business downtown. You're there, you have a location, you're recognized in that location, and you have customers that know where to find you and they are finding you. And the systems could be in place. You maybe want to upgrade the systems or change the systems, but there is a system in place right now for happening. And then often you'll find when you go to buy a business, an owner will finance part of that business. And why would they do that? There are tax reasons. Instead of taking a lump sum, maybe they want to take the money in steps so they don't get hit so hard on their taxes. Or maybe they're looking at retirement income. Or for whatever reason, owner financing is an option when you're buying a business. And then the disadvantages. Often we find that the previous owner didn't really keep good track of what was going on. So maybe he was siphoning cash out, feeling like, well, I don't have to run it through the books. The real way, the proper way would be for me to deposit the cash into the bank account and then write me a check to go get the bread. But some owners will say, oh, I've got the $100 in my pocket. I'm going to stop by and buy the bread on my way back. So only $80 gets into the bank account. So what's the real cash flow? You need to be able to understand that. And often it's not exactly what you were looking at when you bought the business. What's the goodwill? The owner told you that he's very popular with his customers, but you find out that he had a personality that people really didn't like. So once you bought the place, you find out, I got to do a lot of work on the goodwill side. And countering a bad impression is more difficult than creating a new one. So in any case, and then there may be hidden seller motives. The owner said he just wanted to retire, but come to find out, the whole neighborhood is going to be rezoned, and they're going to dig up the road in front of the storefront. So the seller knows that, but it's not a certainty, so he didn't divulge it in the sales process. And then employee defection. I work for this company because I really like Bill. And part of the reason I come to work is so I can associate with Bill. But Bill's gone now, so I don't have that motivation. So we might tend to lose an employee or two or more because Bill's not there anymore. So you could lose employees with the changeover to yourself. So those are the dangers of buying an existing business. And then there's franchising. Franchising is, most people think of places like Subway or McDonald's, but there are others, cleaning services, nursing services, all kinds of different franchises that are out there. The advantage of a franchise is that it has a name recognition. If you buy a McDonald's franchise and you put it on a corner in a new location, everybody knows what to expect from a McDonald's. This McDonald's is owned by you, but the one next door is owned by Fred, and the one in the next town is owned by Bill. But the expectation is the same. The brand recognition is the same. So you already have that big advantage, and they already have a proven business system. It's all documented. Part of the franchising process is to give you an owner's manual, if you will, on the business, how to cook the fries, what temperature to set the grill. All of that stuff is already set out in an operating manual for you. And there's also support. The franchisor will come in and maybe when you're putting your place together or designing your facility, they'll come in and offer you suggestions, sometimes mandates, about how things have to come together. They have marketing expertise already. You don't have to develop marketing plans. The ads are already made, probably a co-op marketing fee, so you don't set it up on your own. It's all taken care of for you. You already have some purchasing power. Your suppliers already knows what the name of your business is and what it works. There's a lower failure rate because you have all this structure already set there, and you have the support from the franchisor. The chances that your business is going to fail are much, much lower than starting your own business, for example. It's usually lower cost overall, even though it's a big cost to get into a franchise. It could be a bigger cost to start your own business because all of that stuff you have to learn, and you may make some mistakes at it. You have financing options. Often the franchisor will provide franchise financing for you. You may not have to go to a local bank. There may be a lender who provides financing for all of those franchises in that category. And then there's the network. Someone on here is starting a floral shop. Okay, if you were in a floral franchise, you could call the guy next door and say, "Hey, listen, I'm having a little trouble with these roses. They don't look like the great quality or whatever." Maybe that other franchisor can work with you and help you figure out a better source for getting your roses, something like that. But the key is there's a network there of people who own the same franchise in different locations, and you can work together to solve problems. The disadvantages: not all businesses have a franchise. There's a wide range of them, but they may not be in your business. There's a structured operating system. You have to do it that way. The reason that you can know what to expect from a McDonald's hamburger is that they are following the same operating manual that the guy next door is, that the guy down in the next town is. Everybody's doing it the same way. So that's why I know what to expect from McDonald's, regardless of which franchise I go into. But you can't change that. You can't change the operating system. You can't increase the temperature on the grill. You can't get your French fries from another supplier. You have to, it's all very structured. And you have territory restrictions. Okay. You look at your city and you say, I've got my restaurants on the south side. I want to open one on the north side. You can't just go do that. You have to get a permission from the franchisor, and the franchisor may not want you to have that one, or they may not want to open one there. So you're at the mercy of the franchisor as to where you could expand to. And you can only sell their products. You're not going to see the McDonald's restaurant down the street selling pizza, because it's not part of their product line. And then there's the ongoing royalty. Every time you sell something, you got to pay the franchisor. One would like to say a small fee, but that's in perspective. So you have to pay an ongoing royalty. And initially, you may find a little bit of cash flow as the new site gets established and so forth. So there are some challenges, some advantages and disadvantages to franchising. And in the life of your business, at some point in time, you may want to turn your business into a franchise. So on the flip side, way down the road, maybe you're going to do that. With that, we're going to stop for a few seconds and see if we've got any questions that Rod or I could answer about the materials that we've covered so far.
We don't have any questions posted right now. Oh, wait. Oh, somebody just popped in with one. Will the file on the slides be available? We will be sending you a link to the recording. I'll send that out tomorrow. That's the only question we have so far. So I guess you can move forward.
Okay. Rod, you're on.
I'm on. And Len, I looked at the participants. Everybody's still with us. So that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, folks.
Yeah. So take a deep breath. I know the first couple of slides were daunting. And some of you have been in business. Some of you are maybe have started out and have been there. Some of you might have been an entrepreneur, gave it up a little bar and coming back. So I think we have a varied audience here of experience. But think of today's discussion like a funnel. Len started out fairly wide, and we're going to continue to keep ratcheting it down. What I'm going to talk about now is really the kind of that customer experience, thinking of the marketing and sales activities. So we've got you filled with a lot of things spinning around in your head, but let's just push that aside for a minute and really talk about working with the customers. You know, nothing happens until someone purchases something. You can do everything else in the world, but until you get that cash coming in, the business is going to go. So let's talk a little bit about marketing and sales and branding and positioning and all things at a top level. Len had mentioned, marketing is everything that you're going to do to create the desire for someone to do business with you. In some cases, it's one way, through social media marketing or through advertising. In the old days, it was yellow pages, or there was a radio ad. There's all kinds of ways to do that today. But what you're really trying to do is create a company image, a company value proposition. And, it's not going to sell itself, but you'll try to put a lot of effort in. What we do when we counsel our clients is we really try to take a lot of time to make sure that you understand the value proposition for your business, because that's the thing that's going to have the most longevity. That will be the thing that catches people's interest, and it will be something that keeps them coming back. If you don't know what that is, you really need to sit down and test that with other folks and do your homework, because what you think is important may not be important at all to the paying customer. So you need to spend some time on that. And so marketing is everything to communicate the value of your product. And what you want to do is have certainly a multi-stage approach. Today, it's better than ever. You can have all kinds of social media efforts. There's Twitter, there's LinkedIn, there is Instagram. You have email marketing. You've got to Google My Business. There's so many ways now that you can get out there and be able to put your value proposition together. And you want to have certainly a multi-stage approach. But as you put your marketing together, you are going to get a little bit into sales, which I'll talk about in a second, because you are going to have a call to action. You'll want people to either click here or go here or check me out here or click this for a coupon. So always remember that you can use social media to get action to move forward. The other thing I'll mention, and we've been picking a little bit on our flower people here in our audience. When you're marketing, you need to understand your customer's job. What I mean by that is, if I'm going to go buy something, I have a job to do, and I'll describe that. So let's say I'm going to go buy some flowers. Now, being a guy, I'm probably going to be more handicapped because I just don't get this stuff. So number one, if you have a floral business, it might be nice for you to educate me on what types of flowers are appropriate for what type of event. A funeral is going to be different than a wedding, or different than Valentine's Day, or maybe different than some other function. So that might help me. Number two, my job is I've got to go find it. Where am I going to find a florist? So is it easy for me to get on Google and find you, whether I want to go to you live at a brick and mortar, or whether I want to go virtually and do it over the internet? If I do want to go live, when I come into your shop, what's that experience like? And if I don't know a heck of a lot about flowers and I'm just kind of figuring out what I need, are the salespeople knowledgeable? Are they going to converse with me and help me through that process? And then is your pricing going to be fair, and where I'm not going to walk out saying this is just way too expensive? So those are jobs, various things I have to do to transact with a florist. If you can separate those out in any other business that you have that are on the webinar today, try to understand what the customer has to do to finally pay you. So that's something just to think about. Len, let's go to selling. So sales is the two-way interaction. This is when you're literally going to be talking to someone either over the phone, standing with them one-on-one, and being able to converse with them. If your value proposition is strong and it has a lot of utility to it, this is just a natural conversation. It's not really selling. It's not really coercing. It's not really, the twist your arm kind of a discussion. So that's why it's important that as you launch a business, that it has something that people want to buy. And then you'll put the bow around it. You'll put the packaging, all of the wrapping paper around it to make it even more saleable. But sales is everything from getting someone to commit to purchase. And then there's a lot of things, follow-ups. It could be that you have to put a quote in front of them. You might have to put a contract in front of someone that has some legal back and forth. And then you certainly then have to collect the money. And there could be easy ways for folks to interact with you in that regard. A lot of folks, when we counsel people, they're very skittish about marketing and sales. They go, you know what, I love the business I'm going to launch. I can create this stuff, but I just shudder when I think I'm going to have to go market it and sell it. And selling certainly sometimes has the used car genre and a lot of baggage. I spent 38 years in sales, and I can tell you that products and services that have a well thought out value proposition and are marketed well, the conversation was very natural and very rewarding. So make sure you spend time to do that. I would also say that it's always good to understand the psyche of a customer. And I'll just give you a selling process. And there's a book that you could buy. I don't think you have to go to a course and a week long and figure out how to be the best salesperson in the world. But it's called Spin Selling. It's S as in Sam, P as in Paul, I, N as in Nancy. And it just goes through the basic psyche of someone you're going to sell to. And as long as you understand the steps of how to take someone through a process and then get them to commit, it really breaks it down very nicely. And it's a very conversational approach. And it's just good to understand that so that you're going to be better equipped to have a good experience from that perspective. The other thing you may do is that you find that maybe sales is not your thing at all. So then you want to hire people that have a natural ability to be very customer facing, very natural in their conversation. And if you have something where you're going to sell to multiple locations, there are organizations that that's all they do is sell. They are commission-based only, and you can farm that out. So don't feel as though you have to be the best salesman in the world, but or salesperson. So there are options for that. But Spin Selling is an interesting read. I think you'll get a real good idea of when someone walks in the door, how would I step someone through a very conversational process for me to get to the end game? All right, Len, let's go to, I think product and service is our next. This green box is, if nothing else, so we can you'll get this recording, but if you want to take a picture of this with your phone and then type it out and put it on a card, or this needs to be on your bulletin board. You need to ask these questions over and over and over, whether you're in business for a year, 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. You have to continually challenge yourself. Who's going to need this thing and why? And then, is my thing any different than anybody else's? And that's what makes you different. And that will bring in more customers than someone down the road if you feel as though someone needs this more than someone else producing it. And are you trying to solve a problem? So what is your definition of the problem, and what are you trying to do to solve that problem? So if you then say, you know what, Rod, I got that. I think I've got a better mousetrap. I'm going to solve this problem. So then you need to define your offering and define it to where it can be easily accepted by the customer. It's easy to understand. And the value proposition is very apparent. Like, well, you know what? I get it. I get it quickly that is going to do something better than what I was thinking of purchasing. And of course, you want to then be able to package it well. It's got to be appealing. It has to be efficient. And right now, green is everything in the marketplace that we want to try to reduce our carbon footprint. You always want to have a quality product. And this is where testimonials and things like that are very appropriate and very beneficial. And then, of course, it's always good to differentiate your product. However, Me Too is not a bad thing. I'll give you an example. Home Depot was the only big box store in town several years ago. And Home Depot and Lowe's said, you know what? I think I can do that. The owner of Lowe's said, we can do that. So they created another big box store. I'm not familiar with many others that are out there. I think those are the two big ones. And I'm sure many of you on this call today have gone to either. But I will say this, from my perspective, I think Lowe's is a cleaner looking store. And it's just, to me, it just seems to be easier to purchase things at Lowe's. So I believe they must, at least from my perspective, they've spent some time to make it more visually appealing. And potentially they make things a little bit easier for me to get through the halls and all of that. So it's okay to do something that someone else does, but then all of those other factors to try to get them in. Am I quicker? Am I more quality? Am I potentially more value? So there's a lot of ways that you can take a look at this. But this green box is everything. And those questions you have to continually ask yourself. And if your business starts out and it's a little sluggish, then you have to say, well, now I wonder why people aren't walking in? And is your value proposition palatable? And these questions are great to ask. So Len, let's go to positioning. Now, this one, years ago, when Len and I were young lads and we were out there selling, it used to be just brick and mortar. Where's the store? Go to the yellow pages and figure that out. So position was, where is the physical place? But now it is both physical and through the internet. So some people on the call today may be doing an e-business. And so your location is now all through the internet. It's all virtual. Now, if you have brick and mortar, you also have a location on the internet. So you actually have both. So you really have to think about brick and mortar. Are you in the right spot? And do a lot of homework to figure out if you are. Take a look at your competitors. How close to you are they? Or are there not a lot in the town and you're going to be fairly exclusive? But you also want to make a decision, where should I be on social media? And the one advice that we give a lot of our clients is, you can't be on everywhere because you're not going to be efficient. Pick a few, hit it hard, and then continue to expand. Because if you try to be everywhere, you're going to spend some money and you're going to probably dilute yourself because you're just going to be overworked trying to figure out how to monitor all of that. And so there's a lot of workshops that SCORE has that are either recorded or live on social media. And so you can really dive into this from that perspective. The other thing you want to think about when you're opening up a business is, do I have deliveries coming to me? And is it easy for me to get deliveries? Is it easy for me to ship? Am I in the right spot for that? And when it comes to my competition, how close and how, we talked about that a little bit. And then is it easy or is it hard to merchandise my business from my location? Am I hard to get to? That's one thing I do certainly with Google My Business. And I say hardware stores near me, gives me a map. And I'm going to go to the one that's closest to me if I kind of like the name brand. And I think, you know what, why would I go an extra 10 miles? So it's really important to have that. Okay, so I think I've got all of that. Len, let's go to branding. Now, branding can be defined as, this is what people say about you when you're not in the room, or your business, no one is in your store and they're not talking to you, they're talking to a friend. And they're talking about potentially your store and what it means to them. And so the name recognition, you have total control to start out your branding. Now it's going to get a little crazy once it's out there, because then customers have the control of how they shape your branding and what they say about you. So you may go out with a certain brand and it may morph and change depending on the feedback that you're getting. It could be positive, and you bolster your brand that way. You're like, wow, I didn't know that my brand was moving in these areas. I'm going to run with that. But it could also be negative, and then you have to work hard to try to turn that around, and you may change your positioning or your value proposition. But branding is really just kind of the qualification. It's the litmus test. It's who you are identified as. And once you have your brand and you're pleased with your brand, you will hit that over and over and over. So I'll give you an example. If I were to take 2 flashcards and I were to write 2 names on them, 2 automobile names, both have 4 wheels, both have an engine in them. One said Mercedes and one said Jeep. I would imagine right now in your head, you have 2 very different ideas of what these cars are. In fact, a Jeep, you might even not call it a car. You may call it more of a utility vehicle. Mercedes is potentially more higher end with economics, and Jeep might be more the outdoors person and maybe cost less. And so one person may buy both, but you probably have someone that says, you know what, I'm not a Mercedes person. I like the outdoors. I'm going to go get a Jeep. Others, Apple, Target, Exxon, Home Depot, Lowe's, we throw all those out. You instantly get an image. And these companies have worked hard to try to burn that image into your head. I'll throw out a good exercise that you can do when you're first starting out your business, and you want to match this up to your value proposition and make sure it syncs. But take out a sheet of paper and write down 10 adjectives. You can come up with less, but sometimes it's good to go 10 adjectives of what your customers what they want to know you by. Such as, do they want to say that you are quality? that you're innovative. Maybe you're edgy, you're modern, you are value oriented, you are convenient. It's a good exercise because as you step back and you do your thing in a vacuum, put all those down, step back and say, am I comfortable with that? Do I like that? Can I exude that? And then test it. Once your product and service is out there, continue to test that. A lot of times you can do that through social media. You can also hire marketing research companies to do this for you maybe once a year. See how it matches up. If it matches up, you're doing a good job. If it isn't, make sure you know how to shift and pivot. It's a bad thing, but make sure you know how you shift and pivot so things are synced up. All right, Len, let's go on to the famous concept of price. Price is the strongest signal to your customer and to your marketplace of who you are and what your quality is. I'll give you an example. If you have a dollar store next to a high-end jeweler, two very, very different images. The dollar store, very good. In fact, I read about a year ago that was the highest number of stores being launched in any type of business was dollar stores. So there's a market for that, but it's not the same marketplace as someone who is going into a jewelry store and in Rodeo Drive. You have to have an appointment to get into so you're the only one in there. So two different prices, but each one has a signal to the type of quality that you're getting. You're going to go to a dollar store and you're going to accept that quality. It may not be the best, but it's going to work. You go in the jewelry store and you're really, you know that quality is going to be there. Otherwise, you're not going to spend that money. So the main thing you want to do, as Len said, is make sure you do enough homework from your competition that your initial price point is fairly commensurate with what your competition is doing if you have products and services that you feel are fairly commensurate with that quality. If you feel you have a product that is better, then price it better. Make sure you put your price commensurate with what you think that quality is. The marketplace will let you know pretty quickly if you're on target or not. And it's always easier to come down in price than to go up. So that's the one fear of lowering your price to get market share. It may work for you, but then how do you then creep that price up over time to where now you're back to where your competitor is? That's a hard thing to do. So pricing is something where you need to do your homework. There's a lot of unique, in fact, our chapter does a pricing seminar. We're doing one in April. Keep an eye out for that. And it's just totally dedicated to pricing and all the different ways you can do it. But it is important to watch what your competitor does, see what else is happening with your competitors as far as coupons, 2-for-1, whatever kinds of value that they're trying to drive. And it's not a problem to copy some of these things. If it's working, you certainly can jump on that and see where it goes. At the end of the day, your customer is going to set your price. They're either going to dive on it and just keep buying it, and you're like, okay, I'm good. It's too high. You may not see as many sales, and you might go, I might have missed that. I need to bring it down a little bit. Be careful. And if it's too low, you may not get the type of customer potentially that you're looking for, because you're trying to bring in a certain type of customer that you like to do business with. So you want to be careful as you move through that. But take a look for pricing webinars within SCORE and take a look at that. The other thing I will say before we move on this one is the customer wants to be treated fairly with the price. So ask yourself, is this a fair price? They don't want to be taken, and they probably won't buy it if it's way too low because they're going, I'm not so sure about the quality of this. I just don't know if this is really going to work. So it's going to be a fun exercise for you on the price side. All right, Len, let's see what we got next. I think we're the famous competition. The axiom here, folks, is competition is good. That might be a little not so intuitive, counterintuitive, I guess the word I was looking for. But competition will make you better. If you don't have any competition, you're going to get soft and you might lose your rudder and some things will start to fall. Competition will keep you sharp. It will keep you on point, and it's a good thing to have. But the one thing you want to do before you open up any business is to do a real good homework, do some good homework on your competitors, identifying who they are, try to find out how big they are, if you can do some work on what type of pricing and quality are you seeing, and the internet is so easy to do that now. Before, you literally had to walk into a store, and you can do this too, is visit stores if you're opening up a gift shop or some type of a retail shop where you have competitors. Put on those sunglasses and get in there and look what they're doing, see how they're interacting with you, what kinds of service are they providing, what kind of, and I guarantee you they're doing that to you. So there's no reason why not to do that. But look for the reputation. Do you have some really strong competitors where it's going to be hard to get customers to move over to you unless you have this wild new value proposition? And then also from a competitive perspective, are certain competitors locked in to where they've got big suppliers and it's hard for you to get into that business because their costs are so much lower because they're so much bigger. So those are things that you want to make sure you do. We have a lot of clients that will come in. They'll tell us, I want to start this business. And we'll ask them, so who else does this and where are they located? And sometimes we get blank stares and they're like, I haven't done that homework. And then we see them again and they're like, what, there's where I was going to go. There's 3 of those almost within 1 mile radius. I'm not so sure I want to go there. I'm thinking of going somewhere else. So it's always good to understand where your competition is. So I think we have some question slide after this, Len.
Nope.
No, you keep going and then we have some questions. So I'm turning over to you now.
Okay. So when we talk about organizing your business, you have a few options. The most common option and is taken by about probably 80% of our clients is to begin with a sole proprietorship. This is a structure that is filed on your 1040 form under a Schedule C. Schedule C is all about the business you run under your own personal name. Then, of course, there's a partnership, which is really 2 sole proprietorships. And again, on your personal income tax return. The advantage of the sole proprietor is that it's not very expensive. It takes just a few minutes really to get it set up. You fill out an application form at the town clerk's office and you get your business license for the community that you're living in. The disadvantage is that when you're running a business through a sole proprietorship, if somebody sues you, they have access to all of your assets. They can sue you for your pension plan. They can sue you for your house, for any savings that you have. All of your assets are exposed when you're running a business as a sole proprietor. So there is another form called limited liability company, and it does just that. The business can only be sued for whatever the assets of the limited liability company are. So if you've given your computer to the company, somebody sues the company, you lose your computer. If your truck is registered in the name of the LLC, they can take the truck, but they can't take your passenger vehicle or your pension plan or your house or savings. They can only take those assets that are attached to the company. So it's a limited liability. Then and an LLC is also filed on your personal income tax form. It's a different number than a Schedule C. I forget what the number is, but it's still filed as part of your regular income tax. Then we get into corporations, the full-blown corporations. The S Corp and the C Corp. The C Corp is the big brother. S Corp is pretty common. It's a little less complicated than the C Corp. But the difference between these is the government recognizes these corporations as individual real people. So the tax forms are filed in the name of the corporation. They don't get filed under your personal tax returns. And you get paid either as an employee or some sort of a distribution from the corporation. Okay. They have all of the liabilities that we see, liability protection that we see in the LLC. They're a little more complicated from an accounting standpoint, so your accounting is going to cost you more. And there are some requirements, such as annual meetings, and certain things can't be done unless they're approved through the corporation's board, et cetera, similar in some respects to the LLC. So So what we suggest as you're getting started is to keep it simple. Sole proprietor or partnership, as I said, is about 80% of where people get started. And if liability or taxation is a concern, then we might want to consider the LLC or the S Corp. The real deal is that you can start as a sole proprietor, and moving up to one of the other forms is very easy. So you go along for a few months, maybe at the time when you open your store, you're going to open the LLC, but you got some business to do ahead of time, organization stuff, whatever. At the point where you have liability, you need to start looking at the LLC or the S Corp, but keep it simple in the beginning. Insurances, all kinds of insurances. But the big deal with insurance is make sure you trust your insurance agent. And the insurance agent will lead you through what these insurances are. Property insurance, same thing as like your homeowner's kind of insurance. So you have that for your business. Liability insurance says you come into my house, you knock over my Ming vase, and I get angry about it. So your liability insurance is going to repay me for what you knocked over there. Or I come into your shop and I slip on the walk. Maybe that's what that's going to cover. Motor vehicle insurance, everybody understands that pretty well. And as we know, these policies have limits. You can buy umbrella liability, which carries the limit. Let's say your limit on your motor vehicle is $100,000 per accident. We can get an umbrella liability that will carry it a little bit further if any of these insurances exceed their policy limits. If you have employees, you got to have workers' compensation insurance, and your insurance agent will tell you what the rate is. This is going to vary by the risk that your worker is faced with. For instance, if you have a restaurant and people are working in the dining room, their exposure to disability or whatever is a lot less than if I'm in a construction site working with construction equipment, or on a farm working with tractors and such. So the rate will vary, and your insurance agent can help you work that out. And then, of course, there's health insurance for yourself or your workers. That's pretty self-explanatory. And life insurance is also another insurance that you could pick. If you're building an employee benefit plan and you're trying to add things to it, life insurance is the cheapest benefit that you can provide to your employees. Usually it's term insurance and group insurance, so it tends to be very low cost. And then there's business interruption insurance. A few years ago, we had a tornado run through the downtown of Springfield, Massachusetts, and put a lot of businesses out of business. It literally took their businesses away. But there are costs that keep going, and the business interruption insurance will help you pay for maybe financing or whatever other ongoing bills will happen because the business is shut down. Those bills are still going to keep going, and that's what business interruption insurance will cover you. There are other insurances like key employee and stuff like that. Talk with your insurance agent. Do not over-insure, but make sure you're covered. You need to. That's why I say you need to trust your life insurance your insurance agent, to be sure that he's giving you the appropriate insurances. Not too much, but definitely enough. And then we need to look at government regulations. Depending on your industry, you'll have different licenses and approvals that you need to get. In a restaurant situation, you're going to need that ServSafe certification. There are labor laws. How old do your employees have to be? How many hours can you work them? Can you force them to take overtime? That kind of thing. Then there are immigration laws. When you hire somebody, are they entitled to work here? If they come to the U.S. as a student, they do not have authorization to actually work here. So make sure that your employees are abiding by the immigration laws. And then, of course, the IRS and Social Security withholding and payments. You know, these guys really are kind of picky about getting that money from you that you took from your employees, that withholding. Plus, they want you to pay your side, and they're not very forgiving about that. So you need to make sure that you abide by the IRS and Social Security withholding. Make sure you're holding out the right amount, and that you're paying the right amount, and that you get the payments in on a regular basis. Rod, yep.
Yeah, I think I'm going to jump in here and we talk about the team that you really want to have to support you. Certainly your family, and there's a lot of folks that are very close to you, but these are the business folks that you'll absolutely want to have as part of your team. Banker is important if you're going to be looking for funding or financing, but it's also critical for you to have a business bank account. And that's something we counsel our new entrepreneurs right away, is that get your business bank account. You can keep everything separate. It also helps you build business credit scores. So make sure that you open up with your current bank. It's a good way to go. Lawyer and accountant, of all of these folks, those two are critical, because your lawyer is going to keep you in between the curbs when it comes to understanding the law and what you can do and not do. And it's always good to consult with them when it comes to signing anything or creating any kind of business relationship with the S Corp or the LLC or that kind of thing. Your accountant is going to keep you in the black, and you've got to have a good accountant to understand what has to happen with taxes and making sure they take care of that for you. That's a lot to deal with. And that's well money spent to make sure that you get a good accountant. Len talked about insurance agent. You could have one now that you do a lot of your other business with, and they might have business insurance as part of their offering. That might be very seamless. And a business mentor, whether it's SCORE or someone else, but it's always good to have a third party to bounce things off of. And the beauty with SCORE is that we're here for the life of your business. So you can stay with us as little or as long as you would like. Some folks will start with us, peel off a little bit, then come back. Some folks will stick with us for 5 or 10 years, and it's a quarterly check-in, monthly check-in, and we try to keep them moving in between the curves. The other thing advice I got from a banker as we dealt with them with the SCORE relationship is they said, if you're going to go to the finance route, interview 3 banks. Don't just go to the one you're dealing with, because you may find that another bank just seems to get you better. There might be just more of a connection. And so knock on the door of a couple of banks and then make that assessment who you think is going to be best to get you and get you the money that you're looking for. Next slide, Len. So this is a real important one at the very early. Remember, we talked about, Len talked about that organizational chart, all the hats you're going to have to wear. And then I talked about the kinds of value prop and the time you're really going to need to spend to ask the question, why would someone buy this? And what is my value prop? This is another real big one to go through before you start anything. And you really need to put down all of your expenses, what it's taking you to live today, what you could maybe peel back on. We talk about this idea of 6 to 12 months of cash so that you can have something in the bank, so that as you get started, if something goes left or right, you can pay for it and cover it. But you really need to understand, such things as mortgage, rent, your groceries, what you're doing with entertainment today, what your utilities are. If you've got childcare, what about medical expenses? All of those can be in the lurch if your business is not going maybe the way you want it to, and there's some hiccups or some surprises. And it's always good then to work with either the SCORE mentor or someone who's financially adept to do some forecasting to say, when do I think I'm going to start getting sales with this business? And then when am I going to be able to start earning some profit so that all the expenses are starting to be paid and I'm actually starting to get something back for that? So this is very important for you to work with and have before you ever make that first step to try to get funding or do something where you're going to invest in a piece of equipment or take on employees, or you really want to understand your wiggle room and how much room you have. Len, I think we're up to questions. So let's see. I know that.
Yeah, there's not really any questions that have been posted. There was more of a comment.
Right. Yeah, I think
I-
for the Kayla one, I guess I can jump in, Teresa, on this one. I kind of looked at this one. And your Kayla wants to find a way to have a creative online boutique with a unique twist. So a couple of things. One is to understand just what does that mean. If you have something that is either edgy or unique, make sure you really define that, and that can be tested with people that they would say, yes, that is. I really like that. That's very unique. Look to see if anyone else is doing it. And if there are a lot of people doing it, that might be a little bit scary that, how are you going to differentiate yourself? And then you had a question here on ways to create coupons to bring in audiences. I think any question, maybe not every question, but almost 99% of all questions are answered on YouTube. I would go to YouTube, Kayla, and say, how do I work with creative coupon campaigns? You'll probably get 20 videos and people will tell you some very creative ideas. Len, I don't know if you have anything else, or Teresa, if you have any other ideas on that as well.
Yeah, I think a really good example of coupons is J.C. Penney's. They build their business on coupons, and it goes to the issue that you brought up earlier, Rod, about perceived value.
Mm-hmm.
You go into Penney's and you look at a $30 shirt, and then you walk up to the cash register, and the clerk hands you a $10 coupon. When you walk out of that store, you perceived value of that shirt is still $30 because that was the price that was put on it. But the coupon lets me perceive that I'm getting more value out of that process. And they print their coupons in the newspaper. They send their coupons in emails. You can get them at their websites. There's all kinds of ways to promote it. Today, you can put a coupon on Facebook. You can put it into, if you're using a mailing program like Constant Contact, you can distribute coupons that way. The key is maintain the value, watch out for your cost, because we don't want that discount to erode your gross profit. But that's coupons are a great way to attract people to try your product. Yeah.
I think we've got some.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Teresa.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can anyone explain the difference between a C and an S corp?
Yeah, S corps have more of an educational or community responsibility kind of focus. If you're into more complicated structures, you'd want to go to the C corp. Honestly, for most of the small businesses I don't see a real good reason to get into the full-blown C corp. Usually LLC or S corps can do the job for you. There are, again, on score.org, you can type in the search box business structures. There are articles, there are even webinars that are concentrating on that aspect as well. What do you think, Rod?
No, I agree, Len. I think it's, as you mentioned, we don't see a lot of movement in this area with our clients that are just starting out in business. Most will start as a solopreneur, as a sole proprietor, and then move into an LLC if they think they need that down the road. And then there are some businesses that need that liability help right away, such as maybe dog walkers or someone that's doing something in the healthcare field where there's some liability that if someone stretches the wrong way or does the wrong movement, the LLC is probably the best way to go.
Okay, and someone put in chat the difference between S corp and LLC as far as taxation goes. Is there things they should be aware of?
Yeah, this is a discussion you need to have with your accountant. But the tax liability on a corporation is limited to the corporation's income, so it wouldn't affect your personal taxes. It would be all of the income considered through the corporation. If you do it, if you do an LLC, you're consolidating that with your maybe other income that you have, and could put you into a different tax bracket. So it becomes personal income as an LLC, but as a C corp, it's only what the corporation itself is doing, and that Which one is better for you? You got to talk to your personal accountant to figure out if there's a tax advantage one way or the other.
Okay, great. What is a reasonable amount of cash reserve to have on hand for an established business?
The Small Business Administration recommends 3 months. Most of the articles I've read are talking more in the line of 6 months. And we look at the operating expenses as you would define in your business plan and add those up for the next 6 months. And that's typically what you should have in reserve to cover any of your hiccups.
I would agree.
By the way, when you're taking out a loan that is an SBA guaranteed loan, the SBA will let you finance up to 3 months of operating expenses, which is where the 3 months comes from.
And I may have asked that question incorrectly on the previous one. They wanted to know the difference between an S Corp and an LLC electing to be taxed as an S Corp.
Oh, electing to be taxed as an S Corp. You're into accounting questions there. I think you really need to take that one to an accountant. I wish I could answer the question for you, but I haven't dealt with that.
Next question, is there a common or particular type of business organization for nonprofits?
Yeah, 501c3. It's a business entity. It's generally has to be education or community service kind of functions, and it would have. You would set it up in a similar way that you would set up the LLC. Working with your lawyer would probably be the best way to go with that one.
And I guess that's all the questions for now.
I'd like to make a comment that goes to something Rod said and some of the things I said in the beginning. One of them is to figure out what the customer need is, and as related to the product that you're producing, to develop that value proposition. To pick on our flower folks again, a flower shop does not sell flowers. A flower shop sells a way for you to express your feelings. I'm sorry your uncle died. Congratulations on your wedding. That sort of thing. And the competitor to that is not necessarily another flower shop. It could be the people that are selling the candy, or the folks that are selling the theater tickets or whatever. But the point is that what you're selling is a solution to the need that the client has. So I just wanted to expand on that for a second.
Okay, great.
If we're ready, we can move on to the next one. Get over there. Okay, startup cash needs. Okay, what we talked about how much capital you need in the beginning. These are the things that you need to think about. What tools and equipment do I need? Do I need a truck? Do I need a forklift? Do I need a computer? What do I need for tools and equipment? And then leasehold improvements. Now, leasehold is generally, you would be thinking about the place that you're in, like a storefront. I got to put new carpet, new lighting. I'm going to paint the walls. I'm going to add some cabinets, that sort of thing. But also from the standpoint of an online business, a leasehold improvement you might consider as your website and maybe other apps or whatever that you might need to connect to your business to make it work. It's not exactly a leasehold improvement, but it's that category of things that you need to think about. And then licenses and permits, what do those cost? If you're forming an LLC, it's going to be $500 plus whatever it costs you for the person who helps you set it up. And then there are professional fees, legal fees or accounting fees. If you're going to ask your accountant to set up your QuickBooks, he's going to charge you for that. You need to think about those expenses in the beginning. And then if you have a product that you're going to sell, you're going to have some inventory on board before you open the door. So how much inventory do you need? A lot of inventory calculations are based on how long it takes to replenish the inventory. So if you place an order and it takes 2 months from the time you order to the time you get it there, then you need to have at least 2 months of your forecasted inventory in-house before you open the door. And then working capital reserve fund, we've been talking about that. 3 to 6 months, depending on which philosophy you subscribe to, but there should be enough there to provide security for that initial phase of getting your business going. And then ongoing, I like the 6 months, but this is not something that some businesses can do from the beginning. This you might start with 3 months, and then every single month add something to it until you get up to the 6-month level. But very important to have something in reserve there. And then what is operating cash? What are the operating expenses that we talk about maintaining this reserve for? Salaries. Usually salaries are one of the bigger items on the list. And don't forget you. You need to be repaid for the time and effort that you put in there. A lot of owners will put themselves on as managing owner of the business and take a salary. You have to talk with your accountant about whether it's better to take it that way or as an owner's distribution, and that's your conversation with them. You've got rent payments. If it's not brick and mortar, then you're going to be paying for websites and subscriptions to other sites that might be selling your product. Insurance. What insurances do you need? We beat that one to death. Taxes and fees. You're going to have some taxes coming up. We need to be sure that we have enough cash to cover those taxes. Advertising. Now, when we look at advertising, everybody says, well, how much should I spend on advertising? Generally speaking, we use 6% of your total sales as a starting point. Now, advertising is going to be highly experimental. There is a science to it, but you've got to try it. If you're advertising on Facebook and it doesn't work, then you switch to another medium. But what's it going to cost you? So we figure start with 6%. If it's getting you all you need, maybe you can cut it to 4%. If it's not getting enough, maybe you need to be spending 8% or whatever. But just for forecasting or planning purposes, if you use 6% advertising would be good, which means now that needs to be calculated into your operating cash needs. And then the cash for the loan interest, you're going to have to pay the lender back for the money that you borrowed, and you're going to have that cost every single month. Primarily, the interest is the expense part. The principal, you're sort of buying back your business. But in any case, the interest on the loan is going to be a factor in your operating cash. Utilities, rent, light, heat, all of those things that go to utilities. Somewhere in there, you're going to have to figure in your internet access for an online business, especially. And then maintenance, whatever kind of equipment or services you need for maintenance, that needs to be calculated in. And there are other things like supplies and so forth that go into this as well. But these are generally your operating cash needs. And we would want 3 to 6 months of this amount as your cash reserves. And then the sources of capital. Where does this money come from? Well, things that you already own that you're not giving up part of your business for would be your personal savings. Family and friends, they might want to get paid back, but they're not going to take a piece of your business to do that usually. And then partners' contributions. Now, if you have a partner, the business is split, whatever proportion you've decided. And the partner, I didn't mean to do that. I get back there, fix that back. Okay. And the partner is going to make a contribution. Then, of course, if you're in business for a little while, you'll have some profits that are retained in the business. And those are good places to get capital for doing growth needs. Okay. Then there's debt. This means you're giving up a piece of your business, at least as being listed as a liability on your balance sheet. Okay. Banks and credit unions can loan you money. You can get an express microloans, and you notice the asterisk there. Those asterisks are loans that can be guaranteed by the Small Business Administration. And what is, if you're not familiar with SBA, SBA does not loan money. They provide guarantees to the banks and lenders that you're going to pay it back. So if the bank is asking you to put in 20% of the total amount that you need, they call this skin in the game, and the SBA will guarantee to the bank 50 to 70% of what you need to borrow, depending on the type of loan that you get. Then the bank is only on the hook for 10%. So it entices them to lend money to small businesses. So there is a fee for an SBA loan, but these guys will be the ones that arrange it. But the money means that you owe somebody. It comes up on the liability side and therefore not good if you can avoid it. Credit cards, definitely a potential to get money. You all have some amount of cash that you can withdraw, and the credit interest rates are really bad. So we recommend do not use your credit cards and stick to that as much as you can, as faithfully as you can. And then the lender's view. How's a lender going to look at you? You're sitting in front of them. You want to borrow $100,000 or $50,000 or whatever the number is. They want to know something about you. What's your character? Are you a reliable person? Are you somebody they can perceive as honest? That sort of thing. They may do a Google search on you before you come in to find out if there's any nasty stuff that's floating around there on the internet about you. What's your credit rating? And this will vary by institution. Most of the banks that I've seen are looking at 680. Some of them go down to 620. If you go for an SBA loan, you can get it lower, and some lenders are down as low as 520. But the institution that you're applying to is going to have their credit rating they're looking for. This is a good question to ask when you get in there. What credit rating do I need? The more important part is you need to know what your credit rating is. And we're talking FICO score here. Okay. If you go to something like a Credit Karma, they will give you the credit reporting agencies ratings for you, which is not necessarily a FICO score, but it can give you a ballpark. And then what's your cash flow? The cash flow that you have now, the cash flow that you're predicting from the business, how much cash is coming in so that I can feel comfortable that you're going to have enough cash to pay me back. And then collateral. If you fail in this loan, where can I get the money back? I do not want to be in the flower shop business. So I do not want your flower shop, but does it have some value that I can sell? Do you own the building? That sort of thing. What's your industry knowledge? This guy who eats at the restaurant every day is not going to have a lot of industry knowledge. So we want to be sure that there's something more deep than just a casual information about the industry. What's your personal investment? As I mentioned before, most places are looking for 20% skin in the game. So how much do you have in there? It doesn't have to be additional cash. If you're contributing a truck, what's that truck worth? That's part of your personal investment, okay? So the total of the assets that you need, plus the cash that you need, 20% of that needs to come from you, depending on the lending institution. And your financial history. Have you filed bankruptcy? Do you have a history of making payments on time, or are you always paying late, etc.? What are your financial projections as far as your business plan? What are you looking at? Is this a growth projection? Is it well thought out? When you do your financial projections, do you have some basis for the assumptions that you made in there? The lender is going to want to know how credible your financial projections are. And then your management skills. Have you ever run anything before? Have you ever hired anybody, fired anybody, made purchase contracts? What are your management skills? Can I see that you have a history of being able to do that? Even in some smaller businesses, just running a crew at McDonald's could be enough management skill to say that you can handle this type of business that you're planning on going into. That means finding the resources, finding the people, assigning them, making them happen, and so forth. Can you demonstrate management skills? And then what's the competition? I recently had a client that said he wanted to open a bar in downtown Springfield, Massachusetts. And I asked him, well, what about the other 12 bars that are downtown? How are you going to set yourself apart from that? They're going to want to know that the competition is not going to be overwhelming and that you have the ability to beat the competition in your area. And then we get into cash. Cash is your most important asset. That's the most liquid thing that you've got. And you're required to open a separate bank account for your business. You do not commingle funds. Your business money needs to stay in the business account. And then you deposit all receipts, what they call intact. You just did my landscaping job. I gave you $100. On the way home, you don't stop and buy a new lawnmower. You put the $100 into the bank account. And then what you do with it after it's in the bank account, we don't care. It's going to be coming out through a check or some other documented source. But make sure everything goes in intact. You got an invoice for $100. The deposit should show $100. Not a lot of people are using a petty cash fund right now, but sometimes you need to keep $50 on the premises for COD deliveries or something like that. Separate sales tax receipts on your book, your accountants will set that up. And the idea is when you charge that extra 6% or whatever the classification is, that's not yours. That 6% belongs to somebody else and is usually not included in the sales number. So it's not your money. We want to keep a separate account on your books for that, and your accountant will set that up that way. Hang on to cash as long as possible. In other words, don't give your clients 90 days to pay. Keep that number down to cash as much as you can. But if your supplier will give you 60 days to pay the bill, take advantage of that. Hold on to your cash and don't get late with it, but hold the cash. If he's willing to let you hold on to your cash for 60 days, so be it. You get a chance to use it without borrowing any money. And then reconcile your bank account monthly. There's always could be a mistake in there. Not as much likely, but if somebody has been tapping into your account, you want to know that you've checked the account on a regular basis. You need to have an adequate cash and reserve fund at the start of business. That applies, as we kept saying before, your startup cash is extremely important. Make sure you have enough. This says adequate. We want to make sure that it is more than adequate so that you don't run into capitalization problems. And then finally, prepare and maintain a cash forecast for at least 6 months into the future. If you use our planning template, it's going to give you a year. And why would you want to do that? When we look out, if you do your business planning effectively, you're going to do a cash forecast that shows you that at the based on the income, the forecasted sales, and the forecasted expenses, and the amount that's in your bank at the beginning, I can see that by August, I'm going to run out of cash. Well, the time to fix that cash problem is not August. That's too late. We need to start addressing that cash deficit back here in April and May so that I can build up the cash so I don't have the cash problem in August. And that really is managing your cash as well as you manage the rest of your business. So having that forecast gives you insight into the future that will allow you to avoid any of those cash trap problems. Why is it, this is Rod's.
Yeah, I'll take this one, Len, thanks. So to complement what Len was saying, why do I want to do a projection? The question is, well, why would I ever want to do a business plan? And you've heard us say the word business plan a couple of times on this webinar. Teresa just put out on the chat box some information on effective business planning. We do a lot of workshops. Is the business plan important? It is critical. Now, rarely do we have a client walk in on the first session with us that wants to start a new business and plop down a business plan that's complete and say, okay, read this over, score, get back to me and see if I'm going in the right direction. We usually, and entrepreneurs, it's very common for you to be very idea driven, very motivated. You've got it all in your head, but rarely have you took time to put it all on paper. And then where would you even find a template to do that? But it is extremely important to create a business plan. And in working with a mentor, you can develop it over time. So it doesn't have to be all done. And in fact, it won't be all done because through your questioning and through your sessions with whoever you try to sit down with to help you do this, you'll find that it is iterative and it'll go over time. If you Google SCORE business plan template, those 4 words, SCORE business plan template, our business plan will come up. You can use it. You can use others. There's something also called a business model canvas. That is a little bit less from a kind of a term paperish look. It's kind of a 1-pager that has columns and it's a little more pictorial. It just depends on the kind of style that you like. But the beauty of the business plan is it will ask you questions and guide you through thoughts you hadn't really thought you needed to put down on paper. And after we work with our clients with our business plan, they're so appreciative that they went through that exercise because it allows you to quantify and qualify your mission, your vision, your value proposition, your products and services, your competition, your pricing. What are you going to do with marketing? And even more importantly is the financial projections. And there's templates that allow you that we provide that all the formulas are in there. And all you got to do is put the numbers in and it'll blow it all out. So it's really critical to do that. One of the other major reasons why the business plan is so important is after a year goes by and you're not pleased with where you think you should be, if you don't have a business plan, you really won't know what's wrong, what isn't working. You think, this way you look at your plan when you started, you keep looking at your plan. And after a year you go, you know what? We hit about 80% of that, but this 20% over here, we missed that. What we thought was going to happen didn't. So let's change it. Let's do some different type of activities. And at least you have a rudder, a barometer, something that allows you to move forward. If you're going for financing, a business plan is required by the bank. They want to know, what is your story? What's this thing all about? And they want to see it on paper. But I would say if you're not going for financing, well then, Rod, I don't need to do a business plan. It's critical to do one. And I think if you look at our business plan and just look at the questions and what the nice thing about our plan is it describes each section and what's in the plan and what we're looking for. I guarantee you'll sit back and go, I hadn't thought of that. Boy, I don't know the answer to that one either. So it's a real good one to work with. And Len, let's go to the next one that shows a little bit of what's in the plan. It's 3 basic sections.
Hey, Rod, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Somebody just put into chat. Should I be thinking about a business plan if I'm just putting my feet in the water to see where my expertise is?
What I would ask you to do is read the business plan because it will spur questions. And if you have a good idea of what the answers to those questions are, or you think you can answer them, you're going in the right direction. So no, you don't have to fill it out, but it's a real nice little sit in the recliner and go, let me go through this and see if I feel pretty comfortable with, if I had to fill this out, well, I think I could do it. So that would be my answer to that.
I think also, Rod, if I could add,
yeah,
the business model canvas that you brought up is a really good, quick, short, fast way to figure that out without getting into all the details of the business plan.
Yeah.
Typically, we tell our folks to don't worry about the verbiage, use bullet points, just get the ideas out there.
Right.
And it's a quick and fast snapshot.
Yes, I would agree. And there's a nice video that describes the business model canvas in YouTube, and it just takes you through it. So there's really 3 sections. The executive summary, you don't do that till the very end because you summarize what you've written, but it's what's my business? What am I financially forecasting? And then here's all the supportive data of why I think this money is going to come in and any other data that says this is why my business is going to be successful. So it's fairly concise. the business plan, if you write it out in the formal way, it's, anywhere between 10 and 15 pages, doesn't have to be any longer than that. Business model canvas is more bulleted. But worst case, your financial forecast, that's a real good model to go through. And I know, Lynn, you're going to talk about that here just a little bit of how to get a good website that we have that can get at that. So Lynn, I think I'm turning it back over to you now.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, this is on our SCORE website. It's part of a 4-section workshop series. What we've gone through today is kind of the first chapter of that. It includes not only some of the materials that we covered today, but also additional resources. In section 4, you'll find the financial templates that we were talking about, and you'll find a lot of other resources on there. So browse through the score.org/start-your-business, and there's a lot of topics that are germane to what we're doing here. So I guess that brings us to our last question period.
Great. I'm going to launch our poll while we're going through the last of the questions. If people would take a moment and answer those are really important to us. So how do you find a business lawyer that understands your specific business?
Say that again. How do you find a business lawyer?
Business lawyer, yeah, that understands your specific business. I would imagine there might be questions or things to look for.
Well, usually the Bar Association is a good referral place. If you go to the Massachusetts Bar Association, they have a referral service. You tell them what you're looking for. In other words, I want somebody that's familiar with retail. I want somebody that knows how to work with construction companies, that kind of thing. They should be able to point you to people either in your area or available to you through the Massachusetts Bar Association that have those skills and abilities.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would also say websites. If you go to certain lawyers' websites, they may list the types of services that they provide. And another thing this is a little bit more of a longer term solution, but one of the things that we like to see is when our business owners get involved with networking groups. And one that's pretty common in the chambers of commerce is BNI, and it's kind of a once a month breakfast session. And if you get involved with some of these are the places where you can ask, hey, does anybody know this? Do we know that? Or you can even get on some of the Facebook chat groups or whatever that are business chat groups. That's where you can make some connections, and someone says, no, I know exactly who you need to call. And so that's another option down the road that you can continue to get referrals for the kinds of things you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree with the networking aspect. There's also another group called Young Professionals. The YPS has chapters all over the state, all over the country, actually. And the same as Rod was talking about BNI. It's a group of people that are into business, they're getting started. They'll share anything to help you solve some of your problems.
Great. Katrina asks, if I'm a home-based business with no expenses and providing a service with no expenses or overhead, do I still need a business plan?
Well, let me first say that there is no business that doesn't have any expenses. Okay. One of the biggest expenses of your business is you. If it's a home-based business, the IRS will let you cut out a space of your house, and let's say it's 10% of the square footage. You can take 10% of your heat and your rent and whatever that goes into that space. They're a little skeptical about it, but there's expenses there. Advertising is going to be an expense, even if you're not don't otherwise have other expenses. And then there are supplies. Maybe you need a website also, and your internet connections and so forth. That doesn't answer your question about whether or not you need a business plan. In this case, I would recommend that you start again with the business model canvas, so you get a feel for what you're doing out there. And again, Rod mentioned that by having a business plan, it sort of focuses you on where your entrepreneurial journey is going. Where are you going to finish this year, and how do I get there? How many clients do you need to see, even though it's home-based? That sort of thing. We recommend a business plan. It doesn't have to be as complicated if your business is very, very simple, but you should touch on those points. Maybe you only have one sentence in each area. But in my opinion, it's very important to start the business planning process, and how deep you get into it, to me, depends on how complicated or large your business is going to go. What would you say, Rod?
I agree completely. And I think also if you have an e-business where you're working out of the home and it's virtual, it's even more challenging to have people understand who you are, what you're delivering through the various social media or however you're going to do that, versus face-to-face or having someone walk in and get kind of some of that visceral feeling. So a business plan is not contingent on going to get financing or a brick and mortar or home-based. It really asks you, what's your value proposition? Who are your customers? How are you going to get your products? How is that whole flow going to go? And it helps you answer a lot of those questions. So I agree, Len, 100%.
I actually have a comment in chat from David, a little testimonial. Completing a business plan has been one of the most valuable things we have done. We even use the information when we're networking. Thank you for that comment.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about international franchising?
International franchising. In terms of starting one or getting one from another country, if you could be a little more specific about that. I've worked with companies that started franchises in China, for example, but I've never had anybody sign up for a franchise with a British company or something like that. Which way are you doing that?
Okay, well, let's see if we get yeah, I'll let you know if they reply with a little bit more information.
Okay.
Okay, so next question. If you're looking to expand your business, do you suggest borrowing more capital or using retained earnings from the business operations?
Rod?
Well, it's kind of tough to without knowing all of the financials. Debt is always something that is a little bit of a collar around the neck. If you have the cash to invest, then that's probably a good way to go. But I think unless we know a little bit more about the business and some of the projections here, I would hate to say go one way or the other. Once again, Len, your accountant is always going to be a tremendous resource for you. You really need to have a financial person to help you, whether it's an accountant or if you have a friend or a family member or the mentor. Finance, when Len talked about the percentages of businesses fail, usually they run out of money. That's why they fail. And so the money is so important. And if you're not all over your numbers, and you may not have to be the expert, but somebody does, then they'll be able to give you the pros and cons of your question, which way is it better to go? So it's a little hard to say without knowing a lot, this is the way to go. Len, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we talked about hold on to your cash as long as possible, but debt is that thing that is ongoing. If you have no customers, you're still going to have that debt.
Mm-hmm.
If you did it with if you self-funded that, then you don't have to worry about that because you don't have any pending payments to go. Then there's the question of why do you have that cash that's available to use that? Are you going to be eating into that 3-month, 6-month reserve that we talked about in order to do an investment? So it's a balancing act. And again, accountant, what's your overall situation? If there is no question about your being able to sustain the business, I always would go to self-funding instead of debt. But make sure it's all about cash management, and your accountant can advise you.
Right.
Okay. Next question. What is a reasonable amount of cash reserve to have on hand for a start from scratch restaurant?
Again, you need to do your business plan forecast so that you can see what your operating expenses are forecasted to be for the next year, let's say. Okay. So then we're going to look at January, February, and March, and what are those operating expenses? We went through that one slide. What are those operating expenses for your restaurant for January, February, and March? And that's the minimum that you should have as a cash reserve. The optimum would be 6 months of those expenses. So whatever that number is, if your expenses are $10,000 a month, you should have 30,000 minimum and 60,000 optimum in the cash reserve. You have to do your business plan to figure out what that number is, and your accountant can help you with that too.
And it could be a little bit more debt driven, because if you're going to have to buy equipment, you're going to really have to look at some of those costs over time.
Yeah, definitely. Good question. Good thing to be asking at this point, though.
Yes.
Really, really strong. And your SCORE mentor can help you figure out what those numbers are, and your accountant can help you figure out which way you should go with that.
Okay, I have a follow-up to the international franchise question. Buying a franchise that is not here now, but is already established in another country.
Mm-hmm. My response to that is research. Figure out what they are. There's so many scam things that come across. Be sure you know the business. You can check with perhaps the U.S. Embassy in that country to find out if they know anything about these people. You can check with online, Google them. Always when I'm dealing with new companies, I Google the name of the company and put the word problems after it, that kind of thing. Make sure you know who you're getting in touch with. Now, the taxation for that will be in the U.S. because your business is in the U.S., but there may be some money transfer back and forth, in which case you may have to deal with banking issues to get money out of the country to pay these folks. So there, you do have some international issues with that. And then there may be some import issues. If the franchise is supplying any materials, such as McDonald's supplies materials to their local franchises, if the international franchise is supplying items, you may have to look at customs brokers and stuff like that. So I would research the company, find out that it's a reliable company, and I would also look at the nuances of doing business with a foreign company.
Also, I learned the other day, there is something called the International Franchise Association. So take a look to see if there's anything. I don't know much more than those 3 words, but look into that. And secondly, if it is legit, you should be able to talk to many franchisors in that organization, and they should be very much open to talk to you, talk about their business. So the parent company should be very open, and then you'll get a feel for, is this legit or not?
Okay, I have 2 more questions because we are running out of time. What point is it okay to start paying yourself out of your business? How do you make that decision?
As soon as your cash forecast shows that it won't damage your cash reserve.
Okay. And the last question, and probably the most important question of the day, how soon could I begin working with a mentor?
Well, I think if, yeah.
Okay. And then I'm going to show you again, score.org is the easiest address to remember. And they have a button called Find Your Mentor that will give you the intake form. If you are located near any of our other chapters, these are their websites, and they will all have a button on there that says request a meeting, find a mentor, or whatever.
Yeah, and I think if you have something very specific you're looking for, put that in the little bit of the small questionnaire that you get, so that if you're that way, you can get the mentor that is paired correctly with you. But worst case, we'll make that happen. It may take a session to get that, but if you say, hey, I'm looking for ABC, then our administrators will try to find and put that together. But that is That should be a 24, 48-hour process if we're all doing our work right. Correct, Len?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yep.
Okay.
I can make one more comment. If there's anybody on here who has a SCORE mentor currently, this is a great time to do this business tune-up. Get with your mentor, just review where you are in your business. That we're entering a new phase with the COVID phasing out, and you're getting back to a quote unquote normal situation. Good time to do a business tune-up.
Excellent. Okay, and there were a few people that did submit their names at the beginning of the presentation, and
Great.
we will make sure they get to the right chapters as well.
Super.
I think then that covers everything today. I just want to thank Rod and Len for just a plethora of fantastic information, and I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. And if we have no other further comments, I think we'll call that a wrap.
Great. Good luck, everybody.
Okay,
We hope to see you.
Yes, thank you very much, folks. Glad to see you today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.